Hi there, I'm Mike Creavey for Homeschool Connections, and with me today is Homeschool Connections instructor Matthew Hunt. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, this is the first we've gotten to chat. I know you're coming in here all ready to go. It's exciting what we were talking about beforehand a little bit. So first of all, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and especially what led you to teach for Homeschool Connections?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, we're off to a great start. I found out we both love Star Wars. I see your
Yes,
Death Star in the back, and I've got a X-wing back here. So a little bit
you
about
gotta have
me.
it.
You got to have at least one Star Wars item, right? So a little bit about me. I'm married to my wife Leah, and we have three children. I earned a bachelor's degree back in 2019 in computer science, and about 4 years ago, I started my own software company called Principled Software Solutions. This has really given me a wide range of software experience, both working with small businesses and large corporations. And then within the field itself, I write code. I also do server management, and I've also done
Wow.
cloud architecture. I'm really all over the place, and I try to be dynamic for my clients. I like to call myself the jack of all technical trades. I
Yeah.
try to be a generalist in a hyper specialized field, so to speak.
Wow. Which I'm sure isn't probably easy to do.
No, there's a lot of moving parts.
Is there anything in particular within that you really, personally see as your own particular, specialty, if you want to call it that, or just, something that is the most exciting to you from all of the different aspects of what you work with?
Yeah, well, the course I'll be teaching in web development, I'll be starting with the
Okay,
front end web development. I'd say that's really my specialty, especially on the Microsoft side of things, is building
gotcha.
websites in the Microsoft languages.
Sure. Well, and yeah, so tell me about that a little bit. How did you end up getting with Homeschool Connections, by the way, through this experience? Because it's of course going to be a very, I think, fascinating course or series of courses, in the future for anyone that takes them. But how'd you get connected with Homeschool Connections in particular?
Well, the first time I ever heard of Homeschool Connections was actually on Catholic Answers back when I was in
Yeah.
college. You guys ran a few commercials for them back in the day.
Hmm.
And then more recently, I've got two friends, Dan Gadu and Domenico Ruggiero,
Hmm.
who are both instructors, or Domenico was an instructor here
Yeah.
at Homeschool Connections, and they've been both encouraging me to get involved here.
Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. I think I did an interview with Dan last year. We'll have to see if he might need another one too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Always love to keep people up to date. So what is it? So speaking of which, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you have coming up here? And I think you said especially you'd like to share a little bit about what students can expect to look forward to in that kind of classroom setting.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm going to be working on building a series of courses, like I mentioned, in web development, starting with the front end, hopefully eventually moving to back end and then even to
Hmm.
database. So you get the full end to end
Yeah.
learning of web development. So my first course here in the fall is going to be on HTML. You can kind of think of that as the structure of a web page. If you've got a Word document, you add some text, you add some images, you add a table maybe. That's the structure of the
Hmm.
Word document. Then the second course is going to be in the spring on CSS, and that's going to be the styling of the web page. So maybe add some
Okay.
color to your Word document. You make it look really pretty. That's what
Yeah.
CSS is going to be on.
Yeah, because I'd mentioned to you how just very basic coding that I had taken. This was would have been like 2002 or three or something when I was first going into undergrad, and it was like you needed some kind of science related,
Hmm.
elective or something. And I was like, oh, computer science, I'll try this. And it was definitely not my particular, kind of skill or anything like that. But just it was like the first time I made like a comment box or something, or like how to submit feedback on a website. It was just like, that's really cool, you know. So and very frustrating, right? You get one tiny little thing wrong in the coding, and it just like comes out all wrong. And so is so what do you? Is there anything you look forward to in particular with Is this middle school or high school? I should ask. Is there an age range you're looking at, or
Yeah, the age I recommend is late middle school, so eighth grade
okay?
or high school.
So is this what would be your I hate to call it a sales pitch, but just if someone's not sure, they're on the fence, what are some things that they can look forward to in class that you're excited to kind of present to them in this particular setting?
Well, what's great about Homeschool Connections is we're Catholic first, right?
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing here. So we're going to, of course, start class with prayer, and I'd like to move right from there into a reflection. So current spiritual reading that I'm doing currently is on the Imitation of Christ. So I've been
Yeah.
putting boxes around paragraphs that are especially like gold nuggets that I would like to share with the class. It'll just be a quick reading of that paragraph that I've highlighted and get to share that with your student. And then from there, we'll move on to the lecture. And once we're done with the lecture, then I'll assign a homework assignment. And that's really going to solidify what we learned in those classes. Throughout the semester, we'll have 4 quizzes to reinforce the previous classes. And then there'll be a final project that will be a portfolio website that's going to take all of those HTML elements and CSS elements that we learned.
Yeah.
And just a little tip for parents here that they can share with their students is if you start building your portfolio website, homework number 1, then by the end of the class, you might have a good chunk of the final project already done. I'll share that right now.
That's good. Thank you for doing that, because I'll do something similar sometimes with my students and just be like, I don't know if you guys see what I'm doing here for you yet, but it's like, this might help. Yeah, that's great.
Well, Mike, this is going to be an intro level course. I don't want to treat it like a 500 level course.
Yeah.
If your student has any interest in software or technology in general, and they just want to get their feet wet, this is a 101. It's going to be a great place to start. And if I may, I want to share 2 things that I think is going to make this course incredibly unique, even compared to what you'll learn in college, or if you go to YouTube and you start looking up tutorials on software. What I find with tutorials on YouTube, or even going into college, I went to college for 4 years, is that these topics get siloed, right? You go to YouTube, you search C#, you watch a tutorial on C#.
Right.
You go to college, you take a database class. There's very little cohesion between these topics. So the first thing I would like to do among this series of web development courses is we're going to be building a portfolio website. So you can bring your portfolio website from the HTML class to the CSS class.
Okay.
And continue building that portfolio website. When we have a database class, you can bring it there and continue building it up. But the second thing that makes it unique is for these foundational courses, you don't need to start at the HTML class. If your student wants to come in at the CSS class, or eventually when we have the database class or the backend class, whatever it is, wherever they want to start, these are foundational courses. They can start wherever they want, and I'll provide those files if they don't have them. So if they want to start in the CSS class, I'll give them those HTML template files, and they can start wherever they want.
That's great. No, I think I imagine, I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's probably the same in your fields as it is in mine. I think in most fields where we do have that more kind of that modern trend, right, to just compartmentalize everything, and you don't see the integration. And I mean, how Catholic is that, right, for there to be this integration? And so I imagine that's going to give you some great opportunities. And not to jump the gun here, but I would assume that Carlo Acutis is potentially a great patron for anybody taking your class as well, right? For that more.
Yeah, the newly
web age,
canonized saint. I've also got a Saint Isidore prayer up here. He's patron saint of computer programmers. But yeah,
right, awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, Matt, this is great. I'm excited for you and for your students here. Is there anything else that students should be aware of about your course, or how families can reach you if they want to learn more after they see this little intro video?
Sure. I'd say something that students might be interested, parents too, here is we're going to be creating something really practical for your student. We're going to be building them a portfolio website. That's something that is tangible, that they can take with them outside of the course. When I had my first interview as a software intern, it was actually at a steel factory.
Nice.
The interviewer didn't really care what my list of courses was I took in high school or was even taking in college. They asked me, what have you built? I want to see what you have built. And at that time, I had built a mobile app. I pulled out my phone. I opened the mobile app. I handed it to them. And then pretty much after that, they're like, okay, job's yours. that's what they really wanted to see. So that's something we'll be giving that's tangible to your student.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and I think that's for any field, there's some difference there, right? There's some line you cross where it's just, okay, here's the competency, and that's important. Here's the skills, and I can meet these academic requirements, but where's your passion, right? What do you do when you're off
Hmm.
hours kind of thing is a big,
Yep.
that's, the where you're building up your treasure, right? And so,
Exactly. So you asked,
yeah,
how can they contact me or how can they
yeah.
find these courses? Well, go to Homeschool Connections, go to Caravel, that's the LMS system for Homeschool Connections. Go to the catalog, then go to live courses. You can filter by instructors under my name, Matthew Hunt, or just search for HTML and CSS, and you'll find my courses there. Also, you can contact me at my business email. That's matt@principledsoftware.net. matt@principledsoftware.net, with principled being spelled Principled.
Sounds good. Well, Matthew, thank you so much again for spending a little time with us today and telling us about your Homeschool Connections courses. Looking forward to seeing how it goes for you.
All right. It was a pleasure. Thanks so much, Mike.
God bless you.
God bless you too.